Halloween Horror Nights has officially announced 10 houses and 5 scare zones for this year's event, which raises the question, which ones are we most looking forward to? This is our most anticipated list for HHN 30 on episode 4 of Countdown to HHN.
Welcome back to the channel that takes you through the fog with episode 4 of our Countdown to HHN series. But before we do begin, if you guys are new here to the channel, we talk about all things Orlando theme parks related. But of course, with HHN just around the corner, it's been all about our favorite event, which opens in less than 2 weeks from right now. So be sure to join the community by subscribing to this channel, as well as giving this video a big thumbs up, for it does help us to create much more videos in the future. Also, at the end of this video, after we do our whole most anticipated list, we are going to be announcing something for our viewers and our most loyal subscribers, so stay tuned for that later in the video. But now let's go ahead and move forward with today's video, all about our most anticipated scare zones and houses for this year's event.
So starting off with the streets first, now we are going to list them from our least anticipated to our most anticipated. And we do want to put this out there now, just because something is listed at the bottom does not mean that we are not excited for it or that it won't be any good. This year's lineup looks absolutely incredible and we're excited to experience all of it. But we do have to pick a number 5 for our list. So starting off is number 5, which will be Crypt TV.
The Crypt TV Scare Zone already has so many props and scenes set up on the streets already, and it's honestly incredible. Like, we haven't seen anything on Crypt TV just yet. Now, we do plan on changing that soon. We are going to be watching Crypt TV pretty soon before the event does start. But since we haven't, we have no idea what to expect.
Now, we have looked up some of the monsters and the characters from well, they're like small videos,
like mini shorts
right?
or something like that.
So we have looked up some of those and they look pretty cool. So we think that you'll see a lot of those characters and monsters in the streets, and they look pretty cool. We have to watch the show, the videos, I guess, in order to really know what to expect, though.
And moving on to our number 4 pick, that is going to be the Scare Zone in New York, Seek and Destroy.
So like Brian said, this scare zone will be located in the streets of New York, which does mean it will be the largest scare zone at the event, which we are very excited about. We normally love whatever scare zone is in New York, especially especially because it does allow for that big stage in the middle where they have the little shows that can really enhance the street.
This zone definitely has a lot to give for us. Every time we go through, there's something like new added, and also the tribute stores right there. So it just makes this entire street seem, completely covered with props and scenes that we're ready to experience. Now, we noticed too on those like larger stages they have the 1, 2, and 3 number, there are small spotlights on it. So we're assuming that possibly you're gonna have scare actors up there that are controlling these spotlights, looking down at the guests, which gives me a like prison yard vibe, which is kind of scary. It's like they're really looking out for each guest, and it makes you feel vulnerable, which gives it that kind of scare factor, which is nice. But we are excited to see what this like controller and this alien cyber regime, like whoever they are, we want to see what they look like, and if there's going to be other characters roaming the streets. Just all in all, we are excited for this, but it is number 4 because there are 3 better streets we're looking forward to.
So heading into our number 3 scare zone, it is Lights, Camera, Action, Eddie's Revenge. We are super excited to see Eddie in person, finally, and we're actually super surprised about the way this street is starting to turn out.
So if you actually go through the streets of Hollywood, you notice there's a couple stages, and there's going to be a lot more added to the street the closer we get to the event. But as of the recording of this video right now, we notice these stages have some backdrops that are themed to past streets from Halloween Horror Nights. So you got like Vamp 55, Invasion, Treeks and Foons, And this other one, I don't know what it is. It reminds us of a Haunted Mansion for some reason, but I think it's more Gothic related. Have no idea.
But like we said, we are super excited to see Eddie in person finally, but we are a little interested just to see exactly how the street is going to play out and what characters we're going to see in the street.
But speaking of icons like Eddie himself, we are moving on to our second most anticipated scare zone, and that is going to be the 30 Years, 30 Fears one. Now this street's going to go ahead and feature some icons of the past events in Horror Nights, as well as some returning characters that we've seen here and there, maybe more like popular ones that we've seen from streets or houses as well that make this return to this street.
Now, like we said with the other streets, there are props and scenes already popping up, and the one for this house is ginormous, and normally we don't see this big of a prop or a scene in that street specifically. So we're super excited to see all of these props popping up, and there's like this big sign at the top that says Halloween Horror Nights, and they have like the signs of all the icons, and it looks amazing. So we're super excited to see this street.
And finally, moving on, of course, to the last zone that's left. Our number one most anticipated is Gorewood Forest.
Now, we both love this street as a whole, not just Gorewood Forest, but the Central Park street. It's just so atmospheric. The trees make it nice and dark, and it's smaller than the other streets, so it's very like tight, close quarters.
Compact,
and and it just makes it a little bit scarier, but also like really pretty as well. Now, we're also very excited for Gorewood Forest itself as well, because this is the continuation of the Terror Queen story. Now, we were introduced to the Terror Queen 16 years ago. Technically 16 years ago. And on the last night of Horror Nights, she did sacrifice herself, saying she would return in 15 years. Now, last year was technically 15 years, but yeah, we're just pretending that it didn't happen, and she is returning this year.
So super excited to see the Terror Queen make her return in Gorewood Forest. And also another thing that we are excited is not only just for the Terror Queen, but Gorewood Forest itself, because it is a storyline based in Horror Nights like history, and also we are excited to see what the storyline continues and what part Terror Queen has to play with Halloween Horror Nights in general.
So that does it for our most anticipated list for the scare zones. So moving on to our most anticipated list for the houses. Now we're going to do this similarly, where we start at our least anticipated and move our way up. So we do not have a number 10 and a number 9. We have a tie for 9th place, which are going to be Revenge of the Tooth Fairy and Bride of Frankenstein Lives.
Now, the biggest reason why these houses are at the bottom of our list is because we've done them at least 10, 15 times or whatever when they were part of HHN Light last year, and they were decent houses. We enjoyed going through both of them. We loved Tooth Fairy, how it had like this very storybook vibe, and you got to hear a narrator talk throughout your walkthrough of the house, but it just wasn't a full event. So it was in the middle of the day, couldn't really see much because of the bright sun. So I mean, we're ready to give it another chance, but that's why it's at the bottom of our list, and we're excited to see what these houses have when they're in their full swing for the event this year.
So that leads us into our number 8 anticipated house, which is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Horror Nights has done this before, so that is why it is a little bit lower on our list, since it is not something brand new. And we are not like huge fans of the movie or any of the movies.
I wouldn't even say a fan. I've actually never seen the movie, so I don't know what to expect even.
Yeah, we do think this is going to be one of the scariest houses of the year. Probably one of the most gory, and
yeah, I mean, it's gonna be loud. This house in general is gonna be loud. Now, one thing I'm gonna jump in, one thing about this house that we are looking forward to is that it's in a soundstage. So compared to like the last time they've had this house, I think back in HHN 25, correct me if I'm mistaken on that, but I think HHN 25, they had it in a tent. Now this year, they're gonna have it in soundstage. So they could add a lot more to this year's house, which could make it a lot better. We do think that this one is gonna be the scariest one that we may be witnessing, but it's not, we're just not the biggest fans of TCM. Now moving on to our number 7th most anticipated house, we have Puppet Theater Captive Audience.
Now we are excited to see what this house brings. The little like preview that HHN gave us last year of this house did look pretty cool. I love the idea of like marionettes and like creepy puppets. However, since we did get that announcement last year, we aren't like super excited for this one because we've just known it's coming.
All in all, we're still excited to see what this house has. Even though we kind of see it on the screen, we want to see it in person. We know it's going to have that extremely creepy vibe. Another thing that we're looking forward to is there is a scene that you are kind of like in the audience of like a theater, and they've shown that, and it's supposed to be huge. It's actually supposed to look pretty big, so we're excited to get into that scene to see how big this perspective of this theater would be in person.
Moving on to our number 6 anticipated house, and it is going to be Beetlejuice.
Now, we did get to go through Beetlejuice a couple times back last year when they opened it for the little 2-day weekend they had. It was great. Loved it. I mean, we're fans of Beetlejuice, the movie itself, but we went through, they told us it's not completely done. Now, there are more things going to come this year when they fully have the event and everything, so that's why it's a little higher in the list than people would expect it to be on. But I mean, it's Beetlejuice. It's going to be a great house anyways. We get to experience it, and we're excited for you guys who have not experienced it yet.
Yeah, going through this house last year, it was beautiful. They did it perfectly, but we are very excited to see how it'll change this year because last year they did have a lot of those restrictions and the modifications in place for what was going on.
There was also a lot of boo holes that were left empty. Like when we went through, there was still a lot of areas we were waiting for some pop outs and we didn't get anything.
Yeah, the fact that they had it just for those 2 days, I think it was hard for them to fill the whole house. So we are very excited to see this year with it completely filled and all of the scenes full and all of that.
Now going to our number 5 most anticipated, we have Wicked Growth Realm of the Pumpkin. Now this facade for this house is one of my favorite facades I'm looking forward to because it's full of pumpkins. It's going to remind us of Twisted Traditions. That was one of the streets back in, I think, what, 2018 maybe? I think 2018. That was in the Central Park area. So we're excited to see all of these pumpkins lit up like they were in the trees of that street back in the day.
Another thing that we are looking forward to in this house is based on the description that HHN released, it sounds like it may be changing throughout the year. It does say that the Pumpkin Lord, which is a new character we will be getting, which is super exciting, will be growing and changing the closer it gets to Halloween. So we are super excited to keep going back and seeing how this house changes. Moving on to our number 4 on the list, which is The Haunting of Hill House. So it does seem like the original houses are kind of taking over this year, but this is the IP that is the top of our IP list, I guess you could call it. This is probably one of the best and scariest horror TV series that we have watched. So seeing it come to Halloween Horror Nights as a house, we think that this house is going to be pretty scary and just overall very creepy.
From everything from like the bent neck lady to the tall man and just the house itself. We've obviously, like Horror Nights has posted the facade photos of it and it looks ginormous. So we're excited to see this entire facade in person. But one thing I think we're looking forward to the most is the fact that they said this is not going to be like a traditional house. Usually when you go into a haunted house at Horror Nights, you kind of get hit left and right with scares from the beginning to the end. But they said this is going to be a slow build, just like the show itself, which I think is the one like key point to this house that we're looking forward to the most. It's not traditional. It's supposed to be creepy. You're supposed to feel the vibe of the house until at the end you get hit left and right with scares. I think that's what we're looking forward to the most. And moving on to our number 3 in the most anticipated list, we have Case Files Unearthed Legendary Truth. Now, the reason why this is number 3 on our list is because really we don't know anything about this house. When you go onto the website, the official Halloween Horror Nights website, all the houses have descriptions except for this one. Now, some people have speculations as to why it does, but really we kind of like how the suspense is building, that there's no information really out there. So we're just excited to kind of walk into this house not knowing much to see what Horror Nights brings to us, because this is supposed to be a continuation in the story of Horror Nights, like history and background, and moving forward to the events coming in the future.
We're honestly just really looking forward to all of the houses and scare zones that have to do with HHN history and all of the lore behind the event itself. So this is one of those houses, but we are very interested to see exactly what it will be. And that moves us into our number 2 on the list, which is going to be HHN Icons Captured. Now, Brian and I have never gotten to see the icons in person, and it sounds like we will be getting a lot of them this year, which we are definitely ready for. And from the description on the HHN website, this does sound like another house that will be changing throughout the year and depending on which night you go.
So yeah, it seems like we're gonna have like certain icons kind of be like the main focus of the house, depending on what night they decide to do that, just to see who's like the most evil of them all. So you're gonna be able to see Jack kind of get a turn in it, maybe Chance, Fear himself, even Eddie may pop in that house. I mean, all these different icons are gonna be floating around, so they may be in like their own individual rooms, which is great, but I wonder what they mean by like you'll have one kind of be the center stage as the event does go on. Plus, this house is gonna have all of our main icons that we had in years past in one house, in one location. We've never had that in the event before. So just like Stephanie said, we've never got to see the icons. So it's gonna be our first time seeing any of the icons, and we get to see them all in one house. And finally, moving on to our number 1 most anticipated house for this year's event, we have Scary Ohio, Horror in the Hotland. Why did I say that like an Irish guy? Hotland.
Now, this house will feature rooms from houses of HHN past, which all of the houses that are going to be featured are ones that we have never been able to go through. So we are really interested to see what those rooms will look like, especially because there are a few houses that we've heard a lot about and wish we could have gone through when they were at the event.
Now, all of these houses that Stephanie is talking about, they are houses that are in the Scary Ohio location in the history of Halloween Horror Nights. So anything that we'll see in this house has to deal with being in the town. I mean, you look at the facade, for instance, it shows that you are going into the town itself of Cary, Ohio. So we are excited to see what this entire house involves in, because we got things like meats and other things that we want to see. But I wonder if there's going to be like its own edition that we have not seen yet of Cary, Ohio, that is part of the play. I have no idea. I mean, we're really excited for it, but it's an original and it's something that we haven't seen. So of course, Horror Nights does an amazing job with original houses, and that's why this is number 1 for us. It's going to be Scary Ohio, Horror in the Hotland.
So that does it for our most anticipated lists for the houses and scare zones for HHN 30. Of course, everybody has their own most anticipated list, and yours is probably different than ours. So we would love to hear what your most anticipated houses and scare zones are. So leave those in the comments below, because we would love to hear them.
And finally, our little announcement that we wanted to make to all of you guys that we mentioned in the beginning of the video. We are starting a Patreon account for all of our loyal viewers and subscribers here on the channel. And our Patreon is pretty much going to feature like certain things that you don't get to see like here on this video, where you can see like behind the scenes stuff, as well as even being able to be shout out in our video. So we're going to put your name on the screens and show you guys the thank you and the support that we have. And even in the future, we are working on this. It's still work in progress, or whatever you want to call it, but we are also going to have some exclusive merchandise from our channel that you guys can only get on in Patreon. So definitely be sure to check it out. We'll leave a link down below for everything that we are still working in progress to get for the account. So be sure to check it out down below, and we will keep you guys more updated on it. If you don't follow us on Instagram, be sure to follow us on Instagram there, because we'll do more like live updates on what's going on there. But it should be pretty much set up here in the next week or so, so stay tuned. That's going to do it for us today on episode 4 of our countdown series. If you guys enjoyed it, again, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And we are super excited for this event to start out, because there's so much going on, and every single day we see new updates happening in the streets and for the houses coming very soon. So until the next video, guys, we cannot wait to catch you then, and we'll see you guys in the fog. Peace out, guys.